So the program that we're doing here today is how much changes here in 100 years. So the site Contingent Institute is set up to interpret around the 1750s, and we're showing the changes of the Industrial Revolution and how much this area is going to change from the 1750s to the 1850s. One of the things we have here to show you today is weapons. Now, weapons are important in the history of the United States, but these are all military weapons made for and by the government. And the biggest thing about them, and the reason we have them here to show you today, is the idea of the Industrial Revolution. The weapons industry, the armories in the United States, were set up and supplemented by the federal government in the same way that the space program was set up. We're trying to move technologies forward and change the way that the society works and the way industry works. So these first guns that you're looking at here are Harper's Ferries. They're 1803. They're the first guns designed and made in the United States. Everything else before that was a copy of a French Charleville or foreign weapons. And then we have I got the timeline a little bit mixed up here a second, so I can switch that back around. But we have a timeline of guns that were made in Harper's Ferry to show the evolution of things. These are rifles, which means there's rifling on the inside. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to load and fire these guns, because rifling is grooves on the inside of the barrel that make the ball fly more accurately. This one is a musket. This is made in 1817, and I believe it's 17, so if you get closer, I don't have my glasses, so this is a flintlock, and it's a smooth bore, and it's going to shoot a round ball very much like this. So it's much faster to load and fire this weapon than it is to fire the rifles. This takes 2 to 3 minutes to load and fire. This one's going to take about 20 to 30 seconds to load and fire. So the ball is slightly undersized, and it just slides inside the barrel. So when you're loading and firing this, you're just dropping the ball down the barrel. You use the ramrod to make sure it makes the whole way down, but it's not that accurate. So a rifle's several hundred yards. Musket is only about 100 yards at best. And it's the difference between throwing a basketball or throwing a football, basically. So some of the changes that happen are the flint system of ignition. So this is a tube with a little hole inside there. You use this piece with some black powder right here. Stone hits steel, causes spark. Spark goes through that little hole, and that's what causes the gun to go off. That's going to change in the 1830s and early 40s to a percussion system. And I don't know if you can see it inside there. There's a little green chemical, fulminate of mercury. So when this gets struck, it explodes. So they're going to change and start going to that percussion system. And that sits right down on top of there. And that's now the firing system. Much more reliable than a rock hitting a flint. The flint is the longest running, the most used way of firing guns in the history of weapons. This technology comes along, and it's very short-lived, actually, because then we start going to fixed ammunition that people are used to thinking about today, a bullet that has everything self-contained. But if you'll notice, these two guns are basically the same gun. This is a conversion. So when they came up with the technology of the percussion, they brought these guns back in, and rather than rebuilding an entire new gun, they just changed the ignition system. They took all this stuff off from the outside, plugged that up, and put the percussion system on top of it. And then move to that being the routine manufacture of how the weapons are made. One of the other changes that happens is in the early 1800s, around 1812, there's a fellow up in Maine named John Hall, and he's making these weapons. This is a breech loading weapon. So you'll notice it has the same ignition system, but now instead of everything happening at the muzzle, the end of the gun, it's all happening back here. So he also designed a special loading mechanism. You pour the powder in, and then this has a little Pez dispenser system that drops the ball out. And so you have that here on your side, you pour the powder, you get the ball out, and then you're back here, the gun's loaded right here rather than front to back and all that. So this technology is very sophisticated. So one of the big changes is, like, I don't know, if you don't mind my asking, what's your favorite, like what you think, cars or music or music? All right, so an acoustic guitar to an electric guitar. you know how to tune an acoustic guitar. If something goes wrong with it, you know how to basically fix the wood. Not that you're a luthier, guitar maker, but this is like a Les Paul, and you need to know how to maintain and fix it. And most people aren't going to know how to do that. So this technology doesn't take off, and while this is made for the federal government and issued out to the U.S. Army, they're going to go back to the system of muzzle loading because this is hard to maintain, and you know, the average soldier is not going to be really good at maintaining it. So, one of the biggest examples, while we're looking at the long arms, is the switchback pistols. So this is the Model 1805 Harper's Ferry pistol, and this is the model for the military police, the cross pistols that they have in their military emblem. That's what it is, the 1805 Harper's Ferry. But same thing, it's a pipe, it's got the tube, spark. It's a machine, but it's a fairly simple machine. By the 1830s, you have things very similar to this. And this simple thing that I'm going to do, of rotating that cylinder, is a huge difference. And the only way that starts to work is through precision machinery. And that's what the federal government's pushing through all arms manufacturing in the early 19th century, is to have interchangeable parts and precision manufacturing. And the people that were making these guns are going to leave that industry, and they're going to go start making sewing machines. They're going to go start making bicycle parts. And all of these technologies are going to move over to private industry, and the Industrial Revolution is just going to blow up. So we no longer replace things, or we no longer replace parts, we replace things, because we've become a consumer society where it's easier to just replace things than it is to actually fix them. So you're not going to have a technology where you gimp it together down there with the changing of the fire lock. You're going to make a whole brand new gun now, because it's so fast and easy to shift our resources.